I just recently went to the Holocaust Centre just outside of Newark, and it was a real wake-up call, because the Germany in the 1930s, they were suffering economic difficulties because of the reparations of the First World War. And these people were desperate and looking for something to improve their life. And somebody would say, look, the problem with our society is the Jews. That's what's causing the problem. We will blame the Jews because they are ruining our country. Go forward now to this country. We are now blaming migrants. We are blaming immigrants for the ways in which our society is run. Migrants, illegal or legal, they weren't responsible for austerity. That was the Conservative government. Migrants and illegals were not responsible for Brexit. Migrants and were not responsible for Liz Truss's failure as leadership. And don't forget, because those populist policies in the 30s, a certain Adolf Hitler was elected. And if we follow the same rhetoric, the same blaming of migrants, we will go in the same way. And the future of that path is very, very bleak.
So that was really interesting. It's on Question Time this evening. Let me just pause. I don't want to listen to Farage. It was on Question Time this evening, who Nigel Farage was on, and Alistair Campbell and a few others. And they were talking about immigration and legal versus illegal immigration. And it was pointed out, the gentleman in question pointed out a bit later how illegal migration is like 40,000. Which is such a small percentage of the immigration stats coming to this country. But the major point was about how reform and populism and is on the rise, and how it's dehumanising these people, these human beings that are coming across. It's blaming them. It's so easy to blame someone for your problems rather than actually looking at the root causes. And trying to work out a way out of them. Oh yeah, let's blame people instead. And it is just like the 1920s and 1930s, and what happened in Europe, but Germany especially. And as the gentleman said, look where that actually led us. And it's really scary that it's happening so quickly in this country. You look at what Rupert Lowe is doing day after day on his Facebook pages and on social media and the paper. He is attacking immigrants. He's making problems where there aren't any, or at least misleading, misdirecting or lying, and just blowing things out of all proportion. It's a failure to address really the root cause of a lot of our issues and blame it on people that are vulnerable. And I find it absolutely bloody disgusting, frankly, and also really worrying. But the trouble is, people are lapping it up. And it's partly because of the media, who are largely right-wing, and partly because people are scared, tired and angry, and they want somebody to blame and somebody to support that they think is going to fix their problems. Unfortunately, lazy, rich, self-entitled people like Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, who, let's face it, aren't short of a bob or two, will use anything to manipulate people politically, anything to gain power. And I think we need to be extraordinarily careful about that. So yeah, Question Time, really interesting. Check it out. There was a discussion about net zero a bit later on as well. And of course, you know which side of the line Farage comes down on that. Alistair Campbell, I know we've got some issues with him in the past, the Iraq War, but he spoke pretty well tonight. The Labour and the Tory as well. Politicians, why is it when they're in power, they just talk utter nonsense most of the time, but then you get them out of power and in like a bit like Alistair Campbell, and they start talking sense. Why can't they do it when they're actually in power? I don't get it. It's really annoying. Anyway, that's me for tonight. And there's Gideon. He's been out in the there he is. He's been out in the storm. He's a bit disappointed with the whole thing. Frankly, it's probably my fault. Yeah, he's just going to roll on his back a bit like that. And yeah, he's okay. Right, thanks very much, everyone. Cheers.